ridiculous power. The rookie strikes again. Welcome to the show.
And welcome back to another episode of the AstrosFuture podcast here on the Believe Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Price, also known as AstrosFuture. You can find my work at astrosfuture.com and find me on X at AstrosFuture.
I'm your co-host, Kenny Van Doren. You can also find me on X at the Vandalorian. Jimmy, before you get in for today, I know we don't usually do this, but I always have a hard time saying my own ad, but I went down to Sugarland recently. It was my first time of the year, and I went down to talk to Sean Buchanan, who's the pitching coach there, first year there, and he said he always has time for the Vandalorian. It's always kind of an awkward thing for me to say. I made it when I was in college more as a joke, and I just never changed it. I've always just had to say it at the beginning of the show, and I've never told you. I've always felt really awkward saying it.
I love it. I think it's super catchy. It's great. I think it's a great handle. Great handle. So today, guys, on the show, it's been a few weeks since the draft. Everyone has been signed that was going to sign. The Astros have deployed some of the draftees out to either Fayetteville or even Asheville. So we're going to kind of talk about some of the guys that have made their full season debuts and some of the performances they've seen. You know, back a few years ago, a lot of these guys would debut in the FCL immediately. We don't get that anymore since the FCL season has been bumped up and it's over by the time the draftees are assigned. But the first one that I know is kind of everyone wants to know about Xavier Nans, and he hasn't been. He was assigned to the FCL Astros, 18 years old. I doubt he's going to debut in Fayetteville this year. Most likely next year. But the next pick that they had was in the third round, Ethan Fry. They went over slot, signed him for almost $1 million. He's debuted amongst a few other college guys in Fayetteville. But it's only been a few games. What's your take on him, Kenny?
Yeah, it's just one of those things too that when I was looking at the top end of this draft, and we'll get to it in a second about maybe some guys that might debut a little bit faster than others out of the college. It's a good start. I think you like the strikeout to walk ratio. It'll take some time to get, used to the extra base hits, but he's coming from the SEC. That should be an easier transition. I think that's going to be one of the big things that we see over these next couple of weeks. There's only I think 2 or 3 more weeks officially of single A, and we're not expecting the Woodpeckers to make it into the postseason. So now you don't have too much extended time there at single A. Or even high A as well. So I think you really like the approach so far. And, I think the extra base hits will come. And just getting hits right now is a good thing. He's seeing the ball well, and he's transitioning well from the SEC.
Yeah, I mean, any kind of positive stats are good to see at this point. And you're right. I think being able to have 5 walks to 5 strikeouts in his first week, hit 300, drove in a few runs, no extra base hits, but good to see. And I think he stole a base. Maybe he's been caught twice, but he's out there running and, playing the outfield, playing center field, which I knew he DH'd a lot at LSU. So nice to see him out there. The next pick, 4th rounder, Nick Monaster, 2 for 18 start. He's drove in 2 runs, but I think the interesting thing is at Southern Mississippi, right, is where he was at, right? Southern Mississippi. He played a lot of second base, and the Astros have tried him out at shortstop. I think a few other positions too. So kind of interesting to see where he's going to end up, in his pro career. Is it going to be at second, short, third base? But that's a good start. I know the Woodpeckers kind of posted a highlight of him showing off his arm from deep short.
Yeah, I was watching that too because you sent it to me and you're wondering, maybe the tool grade. He kind of looked like Caden Powell too, just for throwing it. You kind of saw that. I don't necessarily know, if he's really, maybe into the 60s yet. I would definitely, have him at a 55 around there. But one big comp he got just right out of the draft, and Brian McTaggart wrote about this, is that he's very hard nosed, and they got a lot of Craig Biggio looks as well. The way that you talk about that grittiness, playing a little bit more up the middle, not just second base, but maybe shortstop. I know Biggio is not known for really playing anything other than maybe catcher, outfield, and second base primarily. But this is a guy that's going to plug in and play. And I think you like that so far. I mean, the offensive numbers will come. Even before we got on here, Jimmy, you're saying, it's hard to, really overanalyze 1 week of play. Because I was even looking at the box score the other day, and it said 326 OPS, not batting average, but that was OPS, just because it's a week's worth of games. But I'm very intrigued by that defense so far, and I think that's one of the big things you'll probably see these next couple of weeks. Is I think he's going to have a pretty uneven maybe stat sheet on what positions he's playing.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, any success is good to see. Walker Yannick last year went to high A after the draft, and it was tough for him, and he's obviously done a lot better this year. So to see the guys come out, have any success is nice. It's been a long year. Obviously a lot of traveling around for him. But before we get to a couple other draftees, I want to go straight to an undrafted free agent, and one that I was super excited about. We got to see him in the College World Series, the playoffs. Mason Lytle out of UTSA. And he's kind of done what I kind of expected him to do. He's hitting 300 in his first week. He hasn't struck out yet. He's drawn 3 walks, which, like, we can hit. We're not going to overanalyze a week's worth of stats, but to have 3 walks and no strikeouts at your first opportunity in professional baseball in high A, I think is super impressive. I mean, obviously, the guy has great bat to ball skills. He stole a base, drove in a run, playing all over the outfield, left, center, and right field. So just a great start for him. He's older than your typical draftee. He's 24 years old, but the fact that the Astros put him straight in high A and that he's kind of had this little bit of success already where he's either drawing a walk or he's making contact, I think is really a good sign moving forward.
When you run into like a lot of these older UDFAs, it's like maybe a shorter leash sometimes, or you kind of expect a little bit more because they're more experienced. They've played in the college ranks a little bit longer. But Jimmy, I was even trying to look at it because I know you posted a good amount of them this weekend just on the AstrosFuture account. Is there anyone like recently, like in your mind, that's a little bit comparable, just UDFA wise, for someone who kind of is coming out of the gates pretty fast? I had one guy who wasn't a UDFA, and I was actually just recently looking through my contacts and saw it. But Tim Borden, at a Georgia Tech a couple years ago, who's no longer in the system, but he kind of came off really hot just offensively from the college ranks. I don't know if you had another guy that kind of compared.
Immediately, I'm kind of having a hard time thinking of one. I know, like, when I immediately go to undrafted free agents that had like ridiculous minor league success, I go to like Justin Dearden, a few years back. But like Lucas Spence from last year, and I don't remember exactly what his numbers were following the draft, but obviously he's had a good year. He's made it up to AA this year, which is pretty impressive for an undrafted guy, and really good season for him. But yeah, those are the two that when you mention undrafted that initially pop in my head.
I wanted to touch on one more guy. I know we got 2 more that are on here from the draft that have already debuted, and that's Kyle Walker. I know the numbers not really jumping off the page. He's only 1 for 16, but he had 4 stolen bases and 3 walks. You saw the play too, right, where he slid into second base and avoided that tag. I remember right when he was drafted, you were kind of looking into him a little bit, maybe like this Tony Kemp, just a lot of excitement on the base paths. He's a little bit smaller, but he can still swing it. He had great offensive numbers at Arizona State. I thought that was just exciting. You can see him just jump up. I'm watching the video again right now as we're recording this. Just a huge smile on his face. I think he's a pretty exciting player already.
Yeah, and I think, like you mentioned, he's 1 for 16, so he's making some contact. I think he hadn't struck out a bunch. He's got 3 walks, but he's already got four stolen bases, despite having 1 hit and 3 walks in a week. And I think that just kind of shows the kind of player he is. He actually had a really nice diving play at second base too. I don't remember how he grades overall defensively, but had a nice diving play to his left on a ball that was probably going to be a hit to right field. But yeah, he's a guy that I'm kind of excited about because it's always good to have guys in the system like that bring that energy. And yeah, it was a heck of a acrobatic move. I'm pretty sure it made the MILB account, on X and stuff. So really good to see that from Walker. And then Zach Daudette, infielder that they drafted, I believe is a 10th round sign for pretty low bonus, but he's 4 for 19. He's got 3 RBIs and he's got 3 stolen bases too. Another guy the Astros are getting in the system out of Cal Poly, I believe, and just getting him in the system, getting another infielder in there, and he's had some success. It's 1 week's worth. The Woodpeckers are at home this week. They were on the road for their first week. All the draftees will now be debuting in Fayetteville.
I think he was one of the guys when we were looking at. I know he was in the first 10 rounds, but maybe someone I was a little bit looking forward to because I did tell you like kind of a soft spot for some of these guys that don't really sign for much and see how far they can actually make it just with, not much of a dollar sign behind them, but he made a nice play at first base. It looks like he could be a strong corner infielder, just kind of moving up the system. You don't really have many primary first basemen coming up, but if he can play a very strong defensive first base, that's the first time you've seen that in the Astros system in quite some time. It really just hasn't been that guy these last couple of years.
Yeah, they haven't really developed any first baseman. I mean, I guess trying to think back to the last one, but it's been a while. It's most of the guys that have played first were moved there from a different position and later on, not early on in their minor league career. But that's it for the guys that have debuted from this draft. Oh, actually, I take it back. Chase Call has also debuted, outfielder. He's played with Fayetteville. Outside of that, everyone else hasn't debuted. Most of them were assigned to the Florida Complex League Astros, which is more of a what's the word I'm looking for, but more for a formality, I guess, assigning in to the team. They're not playing any actual games. I'm sure there's some kind of instructs and live at bats and live pitching and stuff like that. But the Astros have been, especially the last couple of years, they've been very, very patient with their pitchers. And a lot of them haven't debuted following the draft, or they've maybe thrown, 5 or 6 innings. So if any of them are going to debut the pitchers, I could see that coming, maybe that last week that Fayetteville has, where maybe they get one outing just to see what they can do, I guess. But the high school guys, that Nans, Jace Mitchell, Elijah Farley, those guys, I don't see them debuting until next year. And I think we may have got a question about it, but if things go well, especially for Mitchell and Nans, they'll probably be starting out in Fayetteville next year.
Definitely, and I think not a lot of guys are like up to Clifford, and Ryan Clifford was coming up. He was just a little bit more advanced than a lot of players that were coming in, and he still took a little bit longer than maybe some of the college guys that went to Fayetteville. That was a pretty fun draft class too back in 2022. That was coming in pretty quickly with Melton and Gilbert who debuted recently, Melton who just came back up again for the Astros, and Clifford who went up to AAA. I mean, that's even crazier. I think he's been on this show before, and he's already up to AAA, and they went really over slot with him on day 3. So, you're not really going to expect it. I think people don't know. Maybe like the draft was moved back, didn't really open for many opportunities, especially college pitchers, because it gets shut down for nearly a month or even a month plus, because some of them aren't really pitching into a postseason wherever they are college-wise. So it's really kind of building back up and building back into a spot where you can come in and maybe make 2 or 3 appearances and not really exceed 15 innings.
Yeah, we've heard a lot of guys come on and talk about, they get to Florida and the Astros are making minor changes, either with the swings or with, grips on pitches, just little things like that. And I know that's probably what they're working on. So they're not playing in games, or the work's still being done. They're not just sitting around Florida enjoying the beach. There's plenty of work being done over in Florida, but yeah, we'll see a lot of those guys end up debuting next year. And I don't think the debuts are done. We'll end up seeing them continue to go. Actually, the Astros today, on the transaction line, Brandon Forrester was assigned to Fayetteville. He was an undrafted free agent, so another guy will be debuting this week. But Kenny, over the last few weeks, there's been a ton of promotions. It's that time of year, after the draft, they're signing guys. Guys are getting promoted. Unfortunately, guys are getting released. But there's been some guys that have taken that promotion and really done well. But I wanted to see. Me and you will choose two promotions that have really stood out. But I'll let you go first. What's one promotion that has stood out for you, and how are they performing at that next level?
I'll start with Ethan Pecco. Only one start behind him so far since his promotion to AAA, and it wasn't the best outing for him. He gave up, I think it was just 7 hits over 2 1/3 innings, and he had 5 strikeouts, and he struck out the side to start that outing. But it's kind of a hard transition when you move up, to the PCL, and you're on the road too. So kind of have to dealing with that in your first time up. But his numbers looked good at Corpus Christi, though. 43 innings, opponent at batting average of 239, 1.21 whip, a little bit higher than maybe you'd want. But another guy that's dealt with injuries this year. And the one positive too, just about Ethan Pecco, he was a little bit younger when he was drafted in the 6th round last year, and 2 years ago in 2023. So he's still only 22. I think that's a very big positive for the Astros, as one of the better pitching prospects in the system, and having that data. I think you're going to be really excited about that too, Jimmy. I think you're really high on Ethan, other than some people, or a little bit higher than some people. You're going to see a lot more, data on him, because he's going to be with Baseball Savant at AAA.
Yeah, I think him getting to AAA is nice to see that. You mentioned 22 in AAA is pretty impressive. I mean, most guys, it's their first full season is age 22 if they were drafted at 21. But yeah, he got off to a rough start, had some injuries, but then he had a ridiculous July. I think he had like a 1.75 ERA and 26 innings. Really good numbers, got that promotion. We saw the Savant stats on his first start, up to 96 with the fastball. So like the stuff it's legit. I mean, he was probably sitting 94, 95 all day long. So to see that kind of stuff from what I think is the Astros top pitching prospect is really good to see, especially at this age. And he's going to get a nice opportunity over the next few months. And I don't know if Sugar Land's going to make a postseason run or not, because it's been a little rough lately, but he's going to get a nice opportunity up until, really, I think they play until like the 21st of September. So he's got probably a month and a half to get some more starts under his belt, get some AAA experience, and really probably prepare himself for maybe a call up next year.
And my last thing before you go to your next guy is, I was looking at those numbers too for July. His whip was down to 0.97. I mean, the guy was not walking anyone. He had 27 strikeouts in 25 2/3 innings, only 6 walks, only issued 1 homer after 3 homers the month prior. So really limiting extra base hits before his promotion to AAA.
Yeah, it seemed like it took him a little while to capture that magic that he had last year, just with the injuries, minor league pitcher of the year last year, but definitely showed it in July, earned that promotion. But the guy that has kind of stood out to me, and he's been promoted twice this year, and his most recent promotion was back in early July, but Bryce Mayer, 16th round pick last year out out of some college in the mid. I don't remember what college. What college did he go to, Kenny?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a very fine university.
That's what they say.
Yeah,
It was
that's what they
Missouri.
say.
All right, just for everyone listening, it was Missouri. All right, but he's made his way up to AA, and it's kind of been like mixed results. But I like to really focus on when these guys have really good outings, and sometimes they're not going to go well. But like his AA debut, he struck out 6 over 5 innings, allowed a run, had a couple rough starts. And the next outing, he goes 5 innings, allows 1 hit, and no runs, 4 strikeouts. Next outing's a little rough. Then his most recent outing, he struck out 8 over 4 innings. And pitch count got up a little bit in that one. Nothing too crazy. Someone came in on the backside and I think closed it out. But yeah, 8 strikeouts over 4 innings. And we're only getting the data that they're sharing, via like the MILB TV broadcast. But he's a mid-90s guy, 95-mile-an-hour guy. I mean, I kind of feel like he's got some comparisons to Ethan Pecco a little bit. And I know me and you texted about it probably a month or 2 ago, but at this point, he's the Astros minor league pitcher of the year at this point, unless something goes crazy. But really good year for him, making it from 16th round last year all the way up to AA. And if he continues to pitch well, he may end up starting in AAA. And then, bam, next year the Astros have, Ethan Pecco, Bryce Mayer, like kind of pushing for a call-up like we saw with AJ Blueball, Colton Gordon, Ryan Gusto this year.
That's what I wanted to compare it to, just how he kind of stacks up against what Pecco put up last year. Across 3 levels in 2024, Ethan Pecco struck out 125 batters in 96 innings with a 3.47 ERA and a 1.21 WHIP. For Bryce Mayer this year, he's kind of getting close to those numbers. So his first full season, 3.72 ERA and 84 2/3 innings, 109 Ks and a 1.1 WHIP. So very comparable. And I think, different ends of the draft, kind of funny, Bryce Mayer coming from a bigger school, only spent 1 year at University of Missouri before he was drafted and going in the 16th round. And then, Ethan Pecco a little bit on that, I wouldn't say maybe the smaller schools, but Towson's not a very big school, but, still coming in from the Astros are going into these smaller schools and finding guys with all these tools. And it's funny, he's a 6th rounder. So I think those are probably top 2 or 3 pitching prospects in the system, and they're going to go back to back with the Pitcher of the Year awards.
Yeah, and what's crazy about Pecco is I think he had like 50-something innings under his belt in college. I mean, it was a real low number. So just the Astros obviously saw something in him, and so far they've been right, and hopefully he'll continue to succeed at AAA. But I'm going to move to a guy that has stood out offensively for me, and it's been a heck of a rise for him. I wrote down a note here, but probably the most helium of anyone in the second half of the minor league season at this point. But Anthony Huezo, he was a 12th round pick, I believe, a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And Neymar Ochoa was 11th. He was 12th, got a little bit higher bonus than Ochoa. And really kind of bounced around rookie ball the last couple of years. Even this year, strikeouts were a little bit of an issue in rookie ball, but he ended up making his way up to Fayetteville. And he was showing good power down in the FCL. But he was bouncing around rookie ball. Strikeouts were an issue, and it kind of felt like, man, is this 12th rounder going to end up flaming out? Well, the Astros put him in Fayetteville, and he just absolutely took off. And first week was phenomenal. He followed it up last week with a good week too, but he's played in 11 games. He's hitting .415, 2 homers, 9 runs batted in, 4 stolen bases, and he's only struck out 8 times in 11 games. And to me, that's a big positive. A guy that kind of had some strikeout concerns, maybe taking that step up a level and playing well. There was a message or a question. We got a mailbag question. I'm gonna go ahead and get to it now. They asked if we knew anything about Huezo because he got pulled the other day. I didn't see anything. He had a catch he made in center field. It's just like a running grab. Nothing that looked off. The next 2 outs were their infield outs or strikeouts, and then he was pinch hit for the following inning. So I don't know if it was precautionary. I don't know if he pulled something. Hopefully he's good. We'll find out tomorrow or today. It'll end up being. This will be posting tomorrow, but when Fayetteville plays their next game, we'll find out if he's in the lineup or not.
He's dealt with nagging injuries before. I was kind of in this spot where I was talking with you, Jimmy, over the last couple of months in 2024. It's just like, is it over? Is it already over for a guy with a lot of promise? And are the Astros just really going to use him as a plug and play guy? Because I sent you a tweet recently, like the Hooks noted he was like the youngest guy in the Texas League last season. And that was just like really kind of a head scratcher. He just kept bouncing around as just like this, I guess plug in and play like AJ Lee. That was a long time ago. I don't even know if many people remember him. And but he was more of a little bit older guy. But with Huezo, a bunch of nagging injuries going into spring training in 2024, really up and down FCL assignments, and He was supposed to start in single A that year, and so this year he finally got a little bit more of a clean slate, got to show off that power and with some of those raw tools that they drafted him. The reason they drafted him because of that. And I even had a source told me in early September 2024 the kid's going to be a monster. I thought that was maybe a little bit bullish of him, but you're seeing it right now. He's finally getting, I try to remain as objective as I can, but it feels like this is the first fair assignment he's had just in the Astros system. And I think he's actually going to run with it and really have a strong finish to the year. And I don't think he's going to be an NRI next year, but I think it'd be very interesting if he gets chosen for the fall league. I know he's a little bit younger. He's 19 to 20 range, but I think it might behoove the Astros to see what they can do and just let him get a little bit more at bats.
Yeah, that's actually a great point. I know you brought that up to talk about a topic, and maybe we hit that on the next show. But yeah, get some more at bats over in the fall league, playing with some good competition. But I think it was probably when we did the draft recap, we talked about like this new wave of young talent, and he was part of it, and Jaworski was too at the time. But Neymar Ochoa, Anthony Hueso, two guys drafted out of high school, and then the 3 or 4 they drafted this year, the 2 they signed undrafted. So him developing into that a legitimate prospect, playing in Fayetteville and hitting well, and then preparing for next year is going to be huge. But Kenny, on the offensive side, who's your guy that is, or I should say that the promotion that has kind of stood out to you?
Yeah, I'll go with Will Bush. Been on the show with us. Kind of want to talk about Joseph Sullivan too, but guy who's kind of cooled off. Same with Will in the promotion to Double A. We even said the main reason I just wanted to bring it up. I was a little bit surprised. And the Astros have been aggressive with guys before, but he's a little bit younger still at that catcher spot. And I thought maybe they just let him finish out the year at high A. But it doesn't hurt. Get him a taste in the Texas League. It's a very make or break league for offensive guys. And for a catcher who really surged offensively and showed a lot of power from from the left side, a lot of pull power, it doesn't hurt. Just let him see this pitching early on. He'll need to improve as a framer, as a catcher, and as a returner back there behind the plate before he kind of keeps moving up the system and gets behind. Gets a lot of major league arms pitching to him. But I think there's a lot of positives to this. Get him around a lot of the same pitchers that he's come up with. We talked about with him. He knows a lot of these guys from the 2023 class. He's very tight with. Getting them to move up together is a good thing. And some positives there, just defensively at first base that we talked about him with. But I think you want him to stick at catcher as long as he can, and he's got good power to play both positions. He doesn't really have any speed behind him or any running. I don't think you really need that too much as a catcher of his build and what he brings to the table. But I think it is very intriguing, and I'm not really going to I'm not overlooking, but I'm not going to look too deep into some of these numbers. I just want to see how he kind of approaches a lot of these at bats.
Yeah, I think it kind of says a lot about what the Astros think about Bush with that kind of promotion. I think most people expected Yannick to be the next catcher promoted, but obviously they feel good about Bush. I know that there's obviously pipeline's high on him. He's got a pretty good ranking. Kind of went from unranked to I think top 20 pretty quickly. So good to see him. And you mentioned Ethan Pecco being young in the draft, and Bush was as well. I think he's only 21 right now. He's in Double A, so really good to see. Kenny, that's going to do it for the promotion part. I did open up a mailbag, see if anyone had any questions, and we got a few. So I'm going to go through here and let's see which one do I want to ask you. I'll just ask you the first one. So, like I said, someone had asked about Hueso being injured, but the next question he had is, do you think Kevin Alvarez ends up in Single A anytime soon with the way he's been playing?
I'm not going to say this year. We've seen it before. I think it's a little bit more common in the Astros system these days with pitchers. Anderson Brito was the one that really kind of surprised you and I last summer, starting in the DSL, getting to the FCL, and then somehow debuting in Single A. And I know he's not having the season that many probably expect. He's playing in a very hitter-friendly league in the South Carolina League with the Asheville Tourists. I think you see Kevin at Single A sometime next year. I think that is a fair assessment to make. The Astros have been pushing a lot of their guys up. Cesar Hernandez, who was a big signee. I know he's not ranked anymore, but Herman Ramirez, another one who's playing right now at Single A. They've been trying to push him up as fast as they can. And I know Herman played a lot of this season in the Florida Complex League, but they're trying to get guys, stateside and get them accustomed to it pretty quickly, because you just haven't seen that success yet. That's why I told people, kind of pull back the reins of the excitement about Kevin Alvarez, just because maybe they don't want to rush him too much, because they've seen that they haven't really hit on a lot of these, development of a lot of these Latin position players in the last couple of years.
Yeah, and I think there's he's 17 years old. There's like no need to try to rush him up to single A. And I think next year he'll probably be stateside, maybe play in the Florida Complex League, maybe majority of the season, maybe get a cup of tea at the end of the season. But I think I would say 2027 is probably where you're looking at him being like, assigned to a full season team at the beginning of the season and really hopefully taking that ascension to be a next level prospect. I mean, he's already way up there. People are enamored with the ability he has, but it's a whole different thing to show it once you've been stateside in full season. But yeah, I think 2027 seems to be more likely.
I know it's a very safe thing to say for us too, and he'll be 18 all of next summer, but it's really just wait and see. How does he perform once he gets to the Florida Complex? We're not going to have too much video, I bet. But the Astros do like to share stuff to the player development account on Twitter. So once he's stateside, they've been doing it too when he's in the DSL. They have cameras out there too. But we'll see how he kind of performs, and it's still rookie ball. A lot of the pitchers are wild. The zone is still very, it's not as big or as tight. So we'll see how he just transitions. I don't think it'd be too hard of a transition for someone like him.
So the next question I got here, this is a fun one. I forgot to say who the first one was from, but this one's from Aaron B221. He says, favorite under the radar pitcher / any hidden gems in the DSL FCL. I got one if you want me to answer it first.
Yeah, go ahead. I have one. I need to go find him real quick.
Okay. So the one I've kind of been looking, I talked with some people about him, but Javier Perez, right-hander out of Mexico, 2 years ago was in the DSL, and he had a 1.31 ERA with 4 walks to 23 strikeouts. And that ratio is going to be a key thing here. So this year he starts out in the Florida Complex League, has a 1.69 ERA, 8 walks to 48 strikeouts in 42 innings. He gets promoted to Fayetteville, and in his first start, he goes 5 innings, allows 1 run, 0 walks, 7 strikeouts. So overall, he's walked 12 in 68 minor league innings, a great ratio, a 1.58 career ERA, fastball in that 91, 94 range. I think he just recently added a cutter. And he's really well built, 6'1", 6'1", 220 pounds. It just seems like here's another guy the Astros found didn't sign a whole lot, kind of came out of nowhere. And to me, what's really encouraging is it feels like there's been a lot of guys that have made that transition to Fayetteville that have really struggled with command. And it's like, man, they got this great stuff. They don't allow a lot of hits. They get a lot of strikeouts, but they walk a lot of guys. And Perez seems like he's going to be the opposite. I mean, he has, from what it looks like and from what I've been told, has really, really good command. And he's already shown that up in Fayetteville. So he'll get a few more starts at the end of the year. But I would say under the radar arm, that's when I would look at Javier Perez.
And it's so hard too, because we're talking about these underrated arms. Sometimes we don't even know what they look like yet, Jimmy, because there just isn't video out there from the Astros, or you try to find them on social media and you just can't, and you just want to be able to see them because the numbers look so great, and it's hard to sometimes find out what the command looks like when they're down in the DSL, and to see that there's a lot of these low bonus command wizards that the Astros keep finding. I don't know how they do it. A lot of success is coming out of there. The Latin American pitchers that they're just kind of digging up out of nowhere. And, Brito was the prime example last year. A guy who jumped on my radar this summer is Juan Frady. He's a 19-year-old right-handed pitcher. He's in his first year. He's a Mexican-born signed pitcher for the Astros. And he pitched in 15 innings, a little bit older at 19. Probably doesn't want to spend too much time in the DSL if he's going to make it pretty far in the minor leagues, or just in professional baseball, excuse me. But 15 innings pitched in the DSL, 1.80 ERA. It's a 1 whip. 13 strikeouts and 2 walks. That's another thing you talk about, the command, and we can't really see any zones on how big some of these zones are that come out of the DSL as well. But moved over to the Florida Complex League to finish out the year. He made 2 starts, 5 games. The walks went up a little bit, not a little bit, but a good amount, but 8 walks to 12 strikeouts. Probably not the best transition that you wanted with a 4.20 ERA, but it was a very intriguing one, because the numbers, strikeouts to walks look strong. I doubt he's a starter for the rest of, his tenure as a professional baseball player, but I was very intrigued by Juan Frady. There we go.
Yeah, so the next question we got is from Hector Lauren. So he says, who gets to the majors first? Kenny, I'm gonna let you take a stab at this one first, but he lists 5 arms: Ethan Pecco, Miguel Ulola, Bryce Mayer, Jose Fleury, and Alonzo Treadwell. So out of those, where are you going?
I'm a little bit surprised Alonzo Treadwell's on there. It's probably the highest. I don't know how you say that. I'm not a bettor, but probably the worst odds is probably him. I was really thinking Miguel Yola. He has such weird starts. Like I don't even know if he'll even debut as a starter at this point. Maybe as a reliever. I don't think Ethan Pecco is going to debut this year. The thing you're kind of running into is there's not many opportunities to debut this year. I'm thinking next year in April, some guys maybe get slowed and you have a spot start. I'm going to go Bryce Mayer. He does have an ETA of 2027. I think he's going to get, he's definitely going to get invited to big league camp this year. I think he would just be, idiotic. I don't want to say that, but I think it'd be silly if he didn't get invited. But I'm gonna maybe do a shot in the dark and say Bryce Mayer.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I think Ulolo seems like the easy choice because he's already on the 40-man roster, I believe. I think he was added this offseason, right? Or he has to be this next one?
Yeah, he has to be added.
Okay, so it has to be this next one. So it's even if they wanted him to debut this year, it would make sense because he's going to have to be added this year. But you're right. I think the opportunity for him was there, and he just unfortunately his command it feels like it's really at the beginning of the season he was doing really well, and it feels like it's kind of taken a step back. Still has elite stuff, obviously, and I'd be very curious to see how he performs in a relief role. I feel like it was 2 or 3 years ago, me and you talked about him being a reliever just based on the strikeout ratio and the not allowing hits. He's definitely got to tighten down that command a little bit. But yeah, if I had to go off that list, I'm going to say Ethan Pecco. I think the Astros really like Pecco, obviously with the aggressive promotion to AAA. And, we can sit here and talk about who our starters are going to be next year, but evident for the last, we have plenty of evidence that shows 5 starters it's not going to get it done. 6, 7, 8. You're going to need a ton of starters. I could see Pecco getting an opportunity next year.
Yeah, I was kind of on that one too. I'm just really between Pecco and Mayer. I just don't know what the outcome or how the roster kind of looks by next year. It is so easy, I think, to add pitchers these days or add players. There's always going to be someone on the fringe, reliever wise or position player wise that they can always find room. I just think it's very tough to even expect one this year. Just they option Colton Gordon. That's going to be your guy who comes up. Blue Ball looked great in his last outing out too, and he's still a prospect. So it's a little bit of a tough one, but I know there's been some people calling for Pecco too because they think he's one of the more polished guys in the Astros system.
Yeah, maybe both debut next year. Well, I guess first is irrelevant if they both debut in the same year. So that's going to do it for our mailbag questions. We'll definitely keep doing those. But Kenny, if you don't have anything else, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm more intrigued, how the season ends because we won't really have any extended ones. See if there's any promotions because they're not going to expect maybe an extra week or 2 in AAA like they did last year with a lot of the 4A guys really leading the way to a title. So interested to see if anyone from Corpus Christi kind of moves up in those last 2 weeks or last week and gets kind of like that final cup of coffee before the off season.
Yeah, maybe, and if he does well over the next maybe month, maybe Sullivan's a guy that because they kind of did that with Matthews. He didn't have a ton of time in AAA, and then he spent those last couple of weeks with Sugar Land. I think he hit a home run in one of the playoff games too. So maybe we'll see that from a guy like Sullivan. But that's going to do it for today's episode. So if you haven't already done so, please be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast. As always, thank you so much for listening. We look forward to having you back for our next episode of the Astros Future podcast covering your Astros in the minor league system.